At this point, you can do many things in Spanish. Ya puedes hacer muchas cosas en español. Now note what I did with that sentence. I said you can do many things in Spanish. More specifically, you can say many things in Spanish, but I avoided using the verb for saying something because we don't have that verb yet. The point here is that, as you can see, you can use the verb hacer to mean basically anything you want it to mean. Combine that with poder, querer, and the verbs from earlier in the course, and you can begin having conversations entirely in Spanish on many subjects. At this point, what we really need to build up is lots of experience in forming an enormous variety of sentences with these verbs. If you want to carry conversations in Spanish at all, this is something that cannot be avoided. In the first place, these verbs are indeed the most common verbs, and they're quite ubiquitous in any normal Spanish conversation, so you'll encounter them all the time. And in the second place, if you can't master these verbs and get comfortable with all of their uses, you're probably not ready to go forward and learn more context-specific verbs, like the verbs for to say, to think, to need, and so on. So I recommend learning several essential sentence structures that you can always rely on. These sentence structures can be found in the dialogues and quizzing materials in the lessons. Every time you review one of your basic sentences, also practice changing out a few equivalent words or conjugations as we've done in previous lessons in order to get comfortable using the sentences in a variety of ways. Beyond that, another essential task is to apply these phrases to as many situations as possible in order to begin thinking extensively in Spanish no matter what the context is. In other words, you should try to turn every aspect of your life that you can into an opportunity to practice thinking in Spanish. Let's create an example from a common situation. Let's say you're sitting at a desk and you feel an urge to get up and get some coffee. The simplest thing to say to yourself in that situation is, I want some coffee. But since we don't have the word for coffee, you can just say, I want something. Quiero algo. Now let's say that after drinking the coffee, you get a little restless at your desk. You feel like you should get out of there and start doing something more active. Two phrases easily come to mind. I want to leave, and I want to do something. Me quiero ir, and quiero hacer algo. However, you're stuck to your desk and the tasks at hand prevent you from leaving. You might naturally think of three phrases. I can't leave, I have to be here, and I have many things to do. No me puedo ir, tengo que estar aquí, and tengo muchas cosas para hacer. Now, you might be asking yourself if you actually have to do this all day long. Is there no getting away from Spanish? How will you get anything done? Well, there are several ways to make sure that you keep a nice balance between your Spanish studies and your real life, and there is reasonable concern that if you try to put too much focus on Spanish all at once suddenly, you're unfortunately likely to burn out and give up too soon. So consider making a certain part of your life into a Spanish zone. It could be a certain room in your house, like the living room, or it could be a certain hour of the day, like 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. What you want to do in this zone is try to turn everything that you say in English into a Spanish phrase as well. It won't usually be equivalent because you'll have to turn many objects into things, cosas, and many actions into do, hacer. But it will force you to apply those phrases that you're actively practicing into real-life contexts. And of course, when you're practicing with your coach, make sure to make note of everything that you have trouble with, both in your own expression and in listening to what your coach says. Suppose you hear the phrase, pero se puede hacer así? As in, but can it be done that way? And you have trouble catching all the words and the meaning. In this phrase, as in many phrases, every single syllable is essential to the intended meaning, so it's easy to miss what's being said altogether. But when this happens, ask your coach to write the phrase out, and then make sure that you make note of that phrase and practice it on your own. Create your own flashcard set of phrases that you need help with, and make sure to focus on those phrases in order to strengthen anything that's weak. Above all, remember that our standards are very high in this course, and believe it or not, we expect you to be able to have conversations almost entirely in Spanish after this lesson. So get as comfortable as possible with all the basic sentence structures that you've been exposed to and practice modifying them to fit as many situations as possible.